Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining us is our co-host, Gary Groob, and a very special guest in Bob DeMarco, the newly elected president of World Lacrosse, the international governing body of World Lacrosse. Of course, they develop lacrosse all around the world, handle tournaments as well. Bob, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you here. I have to say, World Lacrosse right now is really getting an opportunity to be a part of this. But first, I want to know how you became a part of lacrosse. How did lacrosse come to you and you gravitate to it?
Well, it happened a long time ago, now that I'm counting these years. I was actually a recruited college football player at H.E.R University on Long Island in New York. And at that time, you could move in the spring to play a new sport. Not uncommon at that time for a lot of athletes. So I got involved in lacrosse my freshman year at H.E.R, and I fell in love with the game right from that time, and did play two sports while I was at H.E.R.
What kept you in it?
I would say I went into a career both coaching football and coaching lacrosse. I started right out of college as a head college lacrosse coach, believe it or not, at 23 years old in New York. And I also was coaching high school football at the same time, and had a dual career in that for a long time. I wound up being a head high school football coach in New Jersey, and also at the same time, for 20 years, I was the defensive coordinator at Division I Rutgers Lacrosse.
So now here we are. What's the biggest thing on, other than the Olympics coming up, what's the biggest thing that World Lacrosse is trying to accomplish?
Well, I mean, our goal is, our mission is to grow the game around the world. And besides the Olympics, which is, we're now on board for LA 28, we want to be permanently on the card. And we're looking forward to working on Brisbane, Australia 2032. And then wherever the 2036 brings us. So between both of those, and then our general goals every year is, we govern the sport with our bylaws, constitutions. We have 92 members at the present time, soon to be 93. We also host tournaments. This past year, we hosted 3 world championships, the U20 women in Hong Kong. And then recently in Utica, New York, the box lacrosse for men and women. It was the first time women played in the event. This year we're playing a world championship for U20 men in Korea, followed by 2 years of world championships in Japan for our men and women. So we have a full plate, but that's the good part of lacrosse.
Excellent. Gary?
Okay, I want to go back a little bit because I want to get a little bit more of your past. And we're talking about you were playing football in Hofstra. You get introduced into lacrosse, and you actually become a two-sport athlete then. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had many more two-sport athletes. You find it rare today, but there is. I mean, there's a couple of kids playing at Notre Dame right now that are football lacrosse guys, but not as common as they used to be.
Right. And then you were doing business, weren't you? You were headed towards Wall Street, and all of a sudden you made a left turn and you became an educator.
Yeah, my original goal was to work on Wall Street. And then my senior year in H.E.R, I realized that I was leaning toward the coaching profession. I had a natural inclination to educate kids, and I found I was good at it, and that's what made me go in that direction, and I have not looked back.
Right. Well, one of the things I think is your passion towards the program, and 2, towards the athlete themselves, which differentiates you from an awful lot of coaches out there?
I didn't quite get that one about the athlete.
Your passion of the program and your passion towards your own athletes.
Yeah.
Believe in the athletes, right?
The sport and the athletes were something that motivated you.
Yeah. So, I came to, a system where my coaches were my role models. And I think I've always centered the athlete as number one. I think that's reflective of my years in coaching, that a number of my athletes are close friends today because I coached, 50 years ago, that constantly were in dialogue with each other. So, I think I made an impact on them, and they definitely made an impact on me.
Right. And it wasn't just about being a coach, it was about building the program so this thing would be sustainable for years to come.
Yeah. So I've always believed in the program. It's a culture. No stone is unturned in building a program. You have to have so many different areas that you need to be concerned with. But I think the biggest culture is that the kids get to know you, to like you, and to trust you.
Right. Now, you had a chance to work alongside legendary Tom Hayes. What was it like working with him?
We first met each other in 1974 when he was the general manager of the United States team that was in the first really world championship with 4 countries ever actually competed. I was on that trip. I wasn't on the team, but I had a number of my team members there. I first got to know him at that time, and then 7 years later, he called me. I was coaching a high school football team in New Jersey, and he asked me to come along in the spring to coach with him. I respected him so much because, he was about, we talked about program. He was about program. He brought everyone in, the alumni, parents, you name it. So I learned so much from him, and he was my best friend, and I miss him dearly. He passed away 2 years ago, but I did learn so much from him. And then on the other level of it, on the international level, many people consider him the godfather of international lacrosse. He believed so much that this was important for the, to be spread around the world. And he also believed in giving back to the game. The game has given us so much, so it's important that each of us have the responsibility to give back.
Right. Now, what do you think is the biggest difference and the biggest challenge for today's athlete in university in a D1 program as opposed to when you were coaching back then?
Well, again, I've been away from coaching at the collegiate level for a while. I still coached up till not too many years ago at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
I see a difference. I see obviously a difference, with kids and parents, and a lot there concerned more maybe about themselves. But I really feel deep down inside, kids are looking for structure. And, I always said to myself, if I had the ability to go back coaching again, I still feel I could relate with the kids today. As I say, if they feel comfortable with you and trust you, I think kids today are still the same. I believe that.
Right. What do you think is the big hook nowadays with lacrosse? Because we've always had the game, just now it's starting to really pick up.
Well, I think a number of factors. In the early days, communication was very difficult. We tried to work with countries who were going by letters, and now the social media, how much lacrosse is on TV, the structure of it, the beauty of the game. We always compare ourselves with baseball, and we got a lot of our lacrosse players that started in baseball. Lacrosse is action, fun, colorful, great culture. So I think that's where you see it. But I think more the social media presence and the TV coverage on it.
Right. You've talked before about that even practicing lacrosse is fun comparative to doing, say, football drills or hockey drills, whatever. Doing the things and doing the skills is something that really, athletes measure themselves and can really get, just even the practice gets them moving and motivated.
Yeah. Well, again, I compare it to football, where everything was very regimented, built on preparation for a game on a week. And some of the practices were difficult, tough.
Mm-hmm.
But lacrosse, whereas you go in, not to say that it's not a difficult practice, but each drill is fun. I mean, you're moving the ball, you're catching the ball, you're constantly on the go, and then the competitiveness of the practices were fun. So, when I had to practice both of them as a player, I really enjoyed the lacrosse. And the other part of it is the people of lacrosse. People always ask me, you were a high school football coach, a college lacrosse coach. You have both. What do you like better? I always say, I like football in the fall. I like lacrosse in the spring. Well, why did you stick with lacrosse now? I said, because of the people of lacrosse. Not to say the football, I had great friends and relationships, but it was a little different. You kept things close to the vest. But in lacrosse, we're 1 degree of separation around the world. Everybody knows each other, and I really like that. My friends are in the lacrosse world.
Absolutely. Now, in '74, you join U.S. Lacrosse as an administrative assistant, and that's how this really gets going and really gets to the international idea. Let's talk about the U.S. team and the landscape back then and its growth to where it is now, obviously.
Yeah, well, today it's very sophisticated, with all our national teams on tryouts and so forth. The first team in 1974 was picked in a hotel room in Philadelphia where the college coaches and the club coaches, a prelude to pro lacrosse, met, and they picked a team based on talking it out. And ironically, of the 26 players on that team and 3 coaches, I think there's like 19 of them in the U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame.
Right.
That 4 team. And the 74 team, they were the first ones to do it. I mean, that group actually traveled around the world on a 40-day trip, literally around the world, and played together. So it set the tone for the future. In '78, was the first one in England and Canada. A big upset victory led by Stan Cochran. And then in '82, we were in Baltimore, and then on and on and on. And every 4 years after that, it just kept getting bigger and better. And again, today, with the coverage, with the media coverage and so forth, ironically, in '74 and '78 and '82, well, more '74, '78, it would take, a day or two to see a result in a local paper. Whereas today it's instant with the television coverage on ESPN and all of that around the world.
Right. Now, how did you get involved with World Lacrosse? You joined them in 2017. How did you get this all together?
Well, I'm on the board since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I got involved in 2010, so I've been involved the last 14 years with World Lacrosse. At that time, it was the FIL, Federation of International Lacrosse.
Right.
And it was only 2 years since in 2008 when the men's and women's organization joined forces to become the FIL. And again, through my mentor, Tom Hayes, he said, "What are you going to do? You're retiring. You need to do something." He says, "Why don't you get involved in international lacrosse?" And I said, "Well, I like lacrosse. I don't know if I have the skill set to do it." He goes, "No, you have the skill set to do it." And I started off on a development committee where we would be involved in new countries, helping countries that were already there, grassroots, emerging nations, all of that. So the first 6 years, I was on a development committee, and then 2016, I became the chair of the development committee.
Right.
And in 2017, I was elected to the board of World Lacrosse by our members, and then subsequently, I was elected 3 times up until this last election when I ran for the presidency.
Right. Now, since basically since the pandemic, this thing has gone wildfire. We jumped from probably 30 to 90 countries just over in a span where the world was shutting down. Lacrosse is building momentum.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had some really, really good people that were behind it. Our development committee led by Rick Mercurio. We had some passionate people around the world. In 2019, we were able to hire, full-time staff. TJ Buchanan, our director of sports, has been really instrumental in helping that. And the way we worked it is, when a new country came in, it was imperative that we had people on the ground moving it. We didn't want to run it from the outside in. We had to keep people driving it on the ground. And we did. We'd get a lead. We'd make a call. We'd make contact. And we just were relentless on trying to get them involved. And once they did, ironically, what happened was those countries helped other countries in their region. And that's when we went from, no countries in Africa to 2, and now we have 13. So things like that, it was really get a lead and move forward on how we develop those countries.
Right. The programs themselves, the tournaments have gotten so much better over the years as well. I remember being at the 2015 box championships in Onondaga, and it was fantastic. But comparative to what we just witnessed in Utica, my God, it has come so far with all the nations and the skill levels, and even the running of it from World Lacrosse themselves has been second to none.
Yes, and obviously, I was in Utica with that. It was just absolutely incredible to walk into the arena and see 4 box games going on at once in different areas. The pageantry, the color, the arena, the number of teams. I remember, I wasn't with World Lacrosse at the time, but in 2002 and 2001, Dan Conkerton, I was a big proponent of getting box lacrosse as one of our disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
It was some resistance. Should we do this? Could we do this? And then when you walked into Utica, you knew, we've come a long way. And it was an incredible event. And seeing the women play in box, the championship game between Canada and U.S. was one of the best lacrosse games I've ever seen. Never mind women's box or field or sixes or anything. It was just a fantastic game that had you on the seat of your pants.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is that I think that the women, as it went along in the tournament, stole the show. I know I originally was going in to catch men's games, and I found myself more going towards where the women were playing and watching their games a lot of the time than watching the men's games. It was riveting. And to watch all this in the infant stages and knowing it's only going to get bigger and better, it was just amazing.
Yeah, and what the other part of the women's game, even the games that were high differential in score, the companionship, the respect that the women had for the game there. I mean, they were true trailblazers of women's box. And we had a big proponent, Michelle Boyer, out of Canada. Has been a big proponent of that. Dana Dobie, who was on our World Lacrosse board, and Sue Redfern, our president, were all firmly behind having this women's competition in box. and we had 10 teams there. And then we probably could have had a few more, and 28 men teams, and wow. I mean, as I said, we've come a long way.
Yeah, we had Megan Kina, we had Dana Dobie, we had Aaron Bakes, and Emily Harrischuk, as well as Michelle Boyer on the show a few weeks back, talking about all the trials and tribulations getting to this point, as well as the elation of finally being there and being on the main stage. And the one thing that we kept coming up was the camaraderie between teams. Is one thing to talk about Canada and U.S. and the rivalry. But with some of the teams that didn't do as well because they're in infant stages, like the Netherlands, like Finland, and things like that, where they would take the time with each other, not just to talk and shake hands, but to show things and just be mentors to one another.
Well, that is what lacrosse. That's the difference. I mean, we all help each other. We're one fraternity, sorority, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, the passion of the lacrosse people comes out in that. And in the women's box, as I said, I was trailblazers playing. And there's nothing like the feeling of having someone else get that same feeling and passion you have about the game. And you did see that with the women, there. And to a certain extent, the men also. And that's been what we're all about.
Right. And we're going to be lucky enough in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to have a couple more of the women on from Hong Kong, from Netherlands, I believe from Finland as well, to talk more about the growing pains and some of the other little stumbling blocks. I don't know if World Lacrosse can help with them, but of course, equipment isn't made for women. And to try and get them to fit into their equipment comfortably has been a challenge.
Yeah. Well, it's something that's been talked about. Unfortunately, with the rapid growth of the women's box game, the equipment manufacturers haven't caught up.
Right.
With that, and normally the equipment people, are business people, and I think the more they see the women playing the box, the more that some of the specifics for the women's game, and as far as equipment will come. And also, I think World Lacrosse is looking to help in that area too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the demand doesn't present itself fast enough for manufacturers to consider building or equipping women. So essentially, it lags behind. Hopefully, at some point, it'll catch up and try to stay within the same need, right? Be able to fill the needs of the women that are playing lacrosse. I wanted to ask you about international lacrosse from your perspective. You spent enough time in North America, right? You paid attention to what was going on in North America. Are there any subtleties that you'd like to share with us that in international lacrosse exists that maybe North American lacrosse is learning something from, even though they're new to it, something about the way they play?
Well, I mean, I think I did mention this. I mean, you have to look at Japan. I mean, Japan in 1986. Now, that's not many years ago in lacrosse numbers. We're not even a nation. We had a group of people from Johns Hopkins that went over on an exchange. They had some students from H.E.R University come to Hopkins. They brought some sticks over. They did some clinics. And now they have 150,000 alumni that have come from the Japan program, mostly at the collegiate level, but now they're getting into the high school level. But Japan lacrosse has a motto that that's really followed now in lacrosse. And that motto is lacrosse makes friends. And they live by it, and they've taught us a lot. So, I mean, a country like Japan is one. I mean, a country like Czech Republic, who started lacrosse behind the Iron Curtain.
Right.
They saw a picture of lacrosse in a Boy Scout manual, and they made their own sticks. And we didn't even know lacrosse in Czech Republic was going on until the late 80s. And now they're one of our top box programs around the world. They host tournaments in Czech Republic. They have their own box facility. So countries like that, are really, really special to us. what's going on in Hong Kong and Chinese Taipei and China, all, and then we have our mainstays in our blue bloods in Australia and England, who are part of the original four for the men, and Wales and Scotland also with the women. I mean, they also do a tremendous job.
So it's not just about how they play the game, it's how they live the game as well. That they see North Americans that play lacrosse with fresh eyes, that maybe things not that we take for granted, but that we don't consider as important as they could be. Because that statement that's made by the Japanese, their motto, it's not something that is new to me. I mean, that's something, yeah, that's right, that's lacrosse. But the emphasis that they put on it, I think, is what we learn from the appreciation of the friendships that are created. We know that there's a family type relationship between lacrosse players, lacrosse teams, even transcending borders, even in North America. So I guess having the world come in and have a look at it from their way, makes it very interesting. And I think that's a great way to build the sport, right? The appreciation of what it is when when the clock, runs to zero. What happens after the clock runs out?
Yeah, no question. And, just the people through the years. I mean, obviously, the Haudenosaunee and the creation of the game. I mean, they firmly, it's built in their culture. It's something about that stick that's magical. And when kids get it in their hands, it does really nice things for people. And that's a main reason why I've been involved in this all year. I found out when I picked up a stick, and then to watch the eyes of people, and you don't know where it's going around the world at any time. And that's the really, really nice thing about this sport.
Right. Now, you spent a lot of time talking with countries about how to build their program, how to sustain their program. Some need more attention than others, obviously. I was talking with Johnny Meridian back about a week or two ago, and about the Armenian lacrosse program and how they're ready to jump on board.
Ironically, I just got off the phone with Johnny. Armenia Lacrosse is right now in the process of going through our membership. They've already gone through one stage. They're in the second stage. The third stage will come in the next month. And I firmly believe that I firmly believe, I think it's going to happen, is they'll be our 93rd country. And Johnny Meridian has been pushing this. It's his native country. He's been pushing for a lot of years, but what Johnny finally did was get some people on the ground in Armenia.
He's pushed it here too. He's pushed it here as well.
Yeah, Gypsy.
Absolutely. Johnny at his finest, but boy, oh boy. When he explained everything that he'd been through and everything that he'd gone through, it reminds me a lot of the other countries. And the big thing is, of course, is getting the equipment, getting places to play, and all the other logistical issues in there, plus getting people on the ground to do it. Because you can't go back and forth. Yeah.
Equipment-wise, through the years, we've gotten better and better at this. The problem years back was the cost of shipping equipment. But we found unique ways having people visit there, and bring in loads and loads of bags. We played for bags, and it was a lot cheaper than to transport it. So we had those ways. We have manufacturers now, different parts of the world that are doing things. As far as fields are concerned, in some countries they do struggle with that because there's a financial issue, with fields. But they've been partnering, like a lot of the box people in Europe have been partnering with the hockey people. So in the summer, they're able to use their rinks similar to what happened in Canada years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways to get by that. Now we're finding equipment people. I know there's a group in England that has a store there, and we're finding it around the world that we're getting better at that.
Well, if there's money in it, they'll take care of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is money and so forth. I'm happy, myself personally, that doesn't drive me,
Mm-hmm.
But I know in the lacrosse world it drives a lot of people.
Well, I'm talking about the equipment. That's something that unfortunately you have to. It has to be. The businesses aren't into being charities, no matter how much we want them to be, or even how cooperative they want to be. The bottom line does enter into the equation. But I got to tell you, with the way women have been, playing and the quality of their play, it transcends every sport. Women want to try everything, anything. And I think from the interviews that we've done, that Gary and I have done with some of the women that have been very successful in lacrosse, they love the contrast of the physical nature of the game. It's not a play. It's not something they get to do in any other sport that they play. Hockey, so it's interesting. It's interesting to watch them play. I think they play tougher in lacrosse than they do in hockey, to be honest with you.
Really, I mean, at one time, Canada was really the only area playing women's box. That was not too long ago. But again, what's been done in the last couple of years, and it's just growing tremendously. Having organizations throughout the world. Michelle's led a group out of Australia, out of England, and we find it growing so fast we can't catch up with it. But that's a good sign.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I want to transition to the Olympic thing. We'd heard about it for so long, and finally the dream becomes reality, and we have lacrosse in the Olympics coming up in 2028. Let's talk about that long and winding road and how we finally got there.
Well, I mean, the journey has been for a long time. It was a vision, and that was a major reason why the men's and women's organization came together in 2008 to get there. A lot of the preliminary work was done by volunteers. We had tremendous leadership. When we got involved in some of the lower organizations like World Games and Sport Accord, but we got to the point where we started to really, when we took on full-time staff and our CEO, H.E.R, came aboard, we started to get closer to the goal line. And I think the work that was done by everyone in lacrosse took us, across the goal line to get into LA 28. The big thing about LA 28 is we cannot let that end at LA 28. It just cannot be. We have to be spectacular on what we do the next 4 years to get ready. We're going to have the world looking at lacrosse. There were 5 billion people that watched the Olympics in Paris, and we think there'll be more in LA. I mean, just the Olympics were back after the Paris. I mean, there was a lull, when it happened in Japan and COVID and so forth. Well, the Olympics came out roaring out of Paris, and we've got to build on that. And then we're already working on Brisbane 32 in Australia and a possibility in 36, maybe in Mumbai, India, or in Saudi Arabia. We think it might come from that area, and they're both our countries right now. So a lot of work to do, but we have to hit the ground running with the Olympics.
Right. How did we get involved with doing sixes as opposed to picking either box or field? How did that come as an idea?
Yeah. So the Olympics has a maximum number of athletes that can play in the games. That number is 10,500, and that's for all the sports. They have a maximum. Now, they have gone over it, not by a whole lot at different times. So we knew, number one, if we were to get in the Olympics, we would have to reduce our numbers. We couldn't go in with our big field teams and try to get into the Olympics. So the game was set up for that. That was one reason. The second, we needed a shorter version game, rugby sevens. I'll give you an example of that, where it was in tight, TV friendly, shortened game, scoring excitement. So that was what Sixes was all about. It wasn't there to take the place of field game or the box game. It's just one of our disciplines. But that was the only way we could get into the Olympics.
Right. Now, have you been working with the Rebels? Because they've been putting on some Sixes tournaments as well through the PLL.
Yeah. So the Rebels, PLL and World Lacrosse are in an excellent relationship. And yes, Mike and Paul have worked very well together with Jim H.E.R, our CEO, and the event that they put on in Virginia the last 2 years has been a major cooperative effort, and I think it's taken off really well there. And then this year they're adding women to that event. So yeah, PLL is a great partner with us.
Right. Now, Sue Redfern took us through through out of COVID and into the expansion into men and women. You have the daunting task now as the new president of getting us into the Olympics, through the Olympics, and continuing us with the Olympics. That's a huge challenge.
Yeah, it obviously, on Sue's watch, I mean, delivered big time. I'll be the president the next 4 years. I know what's out there, and I'm ready for that challenge. And I know a lot of other people in the world are ready for that. But the biggest thing is we've got to make LA spectacular.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you've brought up this in past, is the importance of regional championships, things like the Pan Am Games, Asian Games, European Games, Commonwealth Games. Should we be expecting to see lacrosse in all of this continually?
It's always been a goal of ours to get into, world type games. I mean, we had the good fortune of 2017 to have our women play in the World Games in Poland. Our men were not invited at that particular time, and we played the field game in there, and we found out that they said we need this. We'd like more action. Too many whistles. Blah blah blah. And then when we went to we went to Birmingham, Alabama 2 years ago, and our Sixes were played, and we sold out the place in Birmingham, Alabama. Olympic people were there to watch us, and it was so impressive. There were so many great games. Canada winning, both the men and the women. Watching Japan win a bronze medal with a sold out crowd. So we knew that type of multi-sport competition was important. We feel we've always tried to get into the Pan Am Games, and we've kind of hit a roadblock. And I think what the Olympics has done for us in LA, now we're getting calls from the Pan Am asking us about lacrosse being in the Pan Am Games. There's games in Asia, there's European Games. We need to be part. That needs to be part of what we do in the future. Because the other part of that is a number of our countries are now getting support from their governing bodies, their Olympic committees in their own country, and a lot of the funding that they get is based on how they're doing in competitions, how good they are, how much publicity they get, and we're finding right now by having those regional competitions, it's really going to help our countries getting more financial assistance from their countries.
Right. You've also had quite the support staff now over the years as World Lacrosse has grown. We talked about earlier about getting a few full-time guys on. This is a huge organization now with a lot of tentacles going in a lot of different directions, really for the good of the game.
Yeah, we've been fortunate, being able to get funding, and then we also found out, when you had volunteers doing it, like myself and other people, I mean, as passionate as we all were, it wasn't their full-time position. They weren't experts at it, And now you see, we brought in the professionals on this, and wow, so many more things can be done. I mean, just look at our social media presence in Utica. I mean, with TV coverage, our TV package now, this is all done because of our professional staff now. That that's what they do, and they do it so well.
Yeah, I agree. I've been part of the media, part of it for a number of years now, and it has just gotten so much easier to work with and work through in these competitions. I know San Diego was a breeze. It was fantastic. Hardly any glitches anywhere, and if there was somebody there at the ready to fix it. They're really a great organization and some great people you have working in all these departments.
Yeah, well, Christy Cahill, she's a pro. I mean, as good as you can get. And I know from your end, every T is crossed and every I is dotted. I mean, does it extremely, extremely well. And you just have to look at the numbers that have increased in our presence. Years back, it would take 2 days to get a score coming back from a country. Now, it's instant. The other part of it is the communication is so much better, with WhatsApp and FaceTime. And when I first started this, a call might cost you $30 to make a call. And then, I could call, Delhi, India, and like right now, and talk to someone like they were, right next door.
Right.
Yeah, big difference there.
I also thought that there were more challenges, of course, in the 2023 Field Lacrosse Championships because, it was all at San Diego State, but it was spread out in a number of different venues all over the place, as opposed to, say, Utica, where it's all in really a building, two buildings combined, so that you're able to get them at any point. For it to be that glitch free is really a testament to her and the entire organization, I think.
Yeah, well, the venue at Utica, I mean, we didn't know how that was going to be, but their bid was great. We saw the facility, and I think anyone that came out of that event, was so impressed, and it was so accessible to the people that, not only were in the facility, but around the facility. Getting to it was great. I mean, all our venues have challenges to it. I think San Diego, I think the biggest thing that came out of San Diego was the big timeness of the event. When you went to that, and it was like an NCAA, championship event weekend, Final Four weekend. Lacrosse had come to the big time in a stadium of that atmosphere. Scoreboards, everything was first class. But all our events have done different things. The one we had before that, was in Netanya, Israel. I mean, we had 46 countries playing in Israel. Now, who would have ever thought in their wildest imagination that lacrosse would have a world tournament in Israel? And Israel, just rose to the occasion there. And the experience that, those players had there was incredible. That year before that, we were, 2022, we were in Towson. Wonderful event, first class. And then the one we had in England in 2017. We've gotten better and better as we've done this. And hopefully that continues in the future.
Right. One of the things that really caught my attention in this one in Utica was the opening ceremonies. Now, the Olympics have nothing on what you guys did there. That was just spectacular. The entire pageantry of it all was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having the Haunishanis at any place is going to make it really, really special, especially in that area. So, that, again, getting back to it, that's what the game is all about. And I hope we never, ever, ever, as big as we've become, I don't want to ever see us lose that.
Right. Now, you have some big things you mentioned coming upward, and it's mostly over in Asia with the men's and women's field in Japan coming up in 26 and 27. This is going to be a big thing too, because now we got to worry about, it's one thing to have it in North America where the majority of your audience is on the time zones. Now to have it in a flip time zone is another big challenge.
Yeah, it will be a big challenge. From the North America side, I see that, but I also see worldwide, the exposure that we're going to get. And anything that Japan does, they do it so well. I mean, you're going to see packed stadiums in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
The event's going to happen in Tokyo. It'll be a smaller number of teams. 16 teams will be in this tournament. It's the first time we're down. Now we'll have a secondary tournament. And it's a good possibility to be somewhere else in the world, or possibly in Japan, or possibly in Europe, where the next 24 teams will play. But I think there'll be a smaller tournament there. But similar to the Olympics, you might be, having events at different hours for people in North America.
Right. Japan's special because, in my opinion, they're probably the country that's made the most growth in the shortest amount of time. Just watching the men's team in the 2023 field, they blew me away. Absolutely blew me away with their skill and mostly homegrown talent. So it's going to be terrific.
I was fortunate to see them when they first started. When I worked at Rutgers, we had Rutgers lacrosse camp, and we would get 60 to 90 Japanese lacrosse players coming in during the summer, and watching them. When they first started, you'd ask them to do a technique, and they'd stay out there for an hour practicing that technique. The difference in Japan lacrosse today, their players are, they have magic feet just like the North Americans have magic feet and great sticks. So that developed over time. That's why if it could be done there, it could be done anywhere.
Right. Even watching the women, they weren't in the women's championship, but they were all with the men's team as support and doing anything they could, cheering on their teams. Just the camaraderie. Again, what the lacrosse community is all about.
Yeah. And not only that, I think that's the culture in Asia. When Hong Kong comes to an event, a lot of their families come to the events. When we had the U20 men in Ireland, you saw a lot of the families come from Chinese Taipei and China, and Japan. So it's really nice to see that part.
Right. Now we only got a couple of minutes, Bob. The next big one, I guess, is the under 20 in Korea next summer. What do we have to look forward to with that?
Well, we're in a process right now where a number of our teams are actually working on their rosters. It'll be a similar tournament to our women in Hong Kong with the number of teams. I believe they're going to be 20 to 24. I'm not exactly sure the number right now, but it's going to be held on an island outside of Seoul, Korea, and they've held tournaments there, Asia Pacific tournaments there. It's a beautiful facility. First, top-notch people in Korea. Ryan Park, Wonjae Park are their leaders there. They've done a really great job of not only in Korea, but promoting lacrosse in the Asia Pacific region. I expect it to be, first class.
Right. I want to take the time just to thank you so much for taking your time with us and going through everything. It's been it's been a quick hour, and I wish you all the best and all the success over your 4-year term as president. And very, very, let's hope that lacrosse just explodes after the Olympics.
Well, I appreciate it from your end too. I've been following your column for on Facebook for a long time, and glad to be able to talk today with both of you. Really impressed, and anytime you have any calls, questions, I'm here, And remember, lacrosse makes friends.
Absolutely.
I agree. I concur. Bob, thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, for Bob DeMarco and Gary Group, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next Thursday. Pick up a stick. Figure it out. Enjoy it. Bye.